Isabella Morgan, 29, had spent a full decade chasing a dream that seemed simple from the outside, yet carried immense weight for her: a house of her own. Not a rental, not a shared apartment, and certainly not a home where her parents dictated the color of her sheets or when the lights should go off. She dreamed of a place she could choose, build, and pay for with her own sweat and quiet determination. 10 years. Working 2 or even 3 jobs at times, living in a worn-down apartment in Stamford, Connecticut, cutting every non-essential expense, skipping vacations, parties, and even the occasional longing for a pretty new dress. Every penny went into one goal: her home. The day Isabella's savings account hit $390,000, she cried in front of her laptop. That number wasn't just money, it was proof. It symbolized freedom, the result of every no she told the world so she could say yes to herself. Harper, her girlfriend and fiercest ally, hugged her tightly in that moment. "Baby," she whispered, "we're finally going to have our home." Together they started browsing listings, measuring spaces, envisioning paint colors, garden beds, and a future they could grow into. Then they found it. A classic Craftsman in Ridgefield with original oak floors and a sunlit open kitchen. The price tag $385,000. Perfect. Isabella smiled as she stepped into the backyard. "This is where I'll grow tomatoes," she said. "Maybe even get a dog." It was all falling into place. The dream was taking shape. Her years of sacrifice were finally blooming into something real. Then it shattered. During one of their usual Sunday calls, her father, Gregory Morgan, casually mentioned the light oak cabinets in the kitchen of the house she was looking at. Isabella froze. She had never told him that detail. Only Harper knew. A chill ran down her spine, but the nightmare hadn't even started yet. Days later, she received a notification from her banking app account accessed from a new device. Alarmed, she logged in. What she saw made her breath hitch. Her house savings account, the one she had protected and nurtured for a decade, showed a balance of 0. A wire transfer had been made for the entire $390,000 to a name she recognized all too well: Gregory Morgan. Not a hacker, not a banking error, her own father. Isabella Morgan didn't grow up in a household that lacked resources. Quite the opposite. Their 3-story home in Westchester County, New York, was pristine to the point of sterility, like emotions had to be folded neatly and stored out of sight. Her father, Gregory Morgan, was a financial advisor with a rigid reputation. Her mother, Evelyn, a marketing executive, carried herself with polished poise, offering perfect smiles to the neighbors while taping color-coded schedules inside every kitchen cabinet. To outsiders, the Morgans were ideal, disciplined, accomplished, respectable, but to Isabella it was suffocating. From elementary school onward, every aspect of her life was under strict surveillance. Clothes were pre-approved by her mother every Sunday night. Friends were vetted based on their upbringing. Leisure time had to be pre-scheduled and logged. Even the books she wanted to read were subject to approval. "We don't feed our minds with nonsense," her mother said the day she confiscated Isabella's first sci-fi novel bought with her own allowance. And Gregory, he didn't believe children needed to think about money. "Money isn't something you should be worrying about," he'd repeat any time Isabella asked for an allowance or inquired about saving for something she wanted. Ironically, he kept a black leather notebook in his desk drawer, meticulously tracking every dollar she spent. He called it the Morgan System, a method to teach her how to spend responsibly. But to Isabella, it felt more like a system designed to strip her of control over her own life. What made this surveillance even starker was how her younger brother Logan was treated. Logan, 4 years her junior, lived like a first-class citizen in the same household. His room was his kingdom. His friends could sleep over without formal approval. He had top-of-the-line gaming setups, a brand-new sports car, and national soccer tournament trips, all funded by their parents. When he crashed his car at 17, their response wasn't anger, it was an upgrade. "Boys will be boys," her mother said with a shrug. Isabella, on the other hand, she once lost internet privileges for a full week after coming home, 15 minutes past curfew following a school project meeting supervised by a teacher. It wasn't hard to figure out who the chosen child was. Perhaps it was that imbalance, the constant monitoring, the need to prove herself, the feeling of never being enough that planted the seed of independence deep within Isabella. At 16, she got her first job at a local cafe. She hid her tips inside a hollowed-out dictionary on her bookshelf, a tiny pocket of freedom in a tightly controlled world. She didn't need anyone to say, "Well done." She just needed to know one thing. Something in her life was finally hers. Isabella moved out when she was just 19, not in a blaze of rebellion, but in quiet resolve. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic exits like in the movies. She simply packed what little she could call her own, a battered suitcase of clothes, a few thrifted furniture pieces, some college supplies, and a modest savings account built from 3 years of part-time jobs. She moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Stamford, Connecticut, shared with 2 community college classmates. The place was damp, the walls thin enough to hear keyboard clicks from the next room. But for Isabella, it was her first true territory of freedom. Her father warned her, "You'll be back in 6 months." Her mother sighed, "You're throwing away everything we've planned for you." But 6 months passed, then a year, then 2. Nothing was easy. Isabella juggled school and full-time work, morning shifts at a cafe, tutoring in the evenings, and bookstore shifts on weekends. Her meals were ramen, peanut butter, and toast. Her clothes came from Goodwill and yard sales. But she didn't complain, because for the first time in her life, every decision belonged to her. After completing her first year at community college, she earned a partial scholarship and transferred to a 4-year university. She chose to major in computer science and threw herself into studies and side gigs. Around that time, she began building a financial plan of her own. Every month, 30% of her income went into a high-yield savings account. From that moment on, every bonus tax refund or freelance payment was carefully tracked. She maintained spreadsheets, logged every transaction. Every dollar had a purpose. She still called home occasionally enough to maintain the illusion of normalcy, but those calls felt more like interrogations than conversations. "How are you managing your money? Are you saving anything?" Questions that sounded helpful on the surface, but felt more like long-distance surveillance. Isabella kept her answers simple, "I'm doing fine." And she was. Not glamorous, not easy, but fine on her own terms. Isabella wasn't someone who opened up easily. After a childhood shaped by control and an early adulthood built on solitude, she had learned to rely on herself and only herself. But then she met Harper Quinn at a tech conference in New Haven, and for the first time, someone saw her without needing her to explain everything. Harper didn't ask, "Why are you so independent?" She simply said, "You're strong. You're living the way most people only dream about." What began as casual post-conference coffees turned into late-night debugging sessions, shared code, and soft glances across laptop screens. Within a year, they were living together in a modest apartment in Stamford. Bills were split, routines shared, and for the first time in her life, Isabella felt like she had a true partner. Harper was the first person Isabella told about her house savings account. She didn't mention the exact amount, just said, "I'm working toward stability," not to brag, just to breathe. Harper didn't laugh or flinch. She held Isabella's hand and said, "When you're ready, I'll go house hunting with you." 6 months later, it was Harper who brought it up again. "Housing prices aren't going down. We should probably start looking." And so they did. Every weekend, they toured neighborhoods around Ridgefield, taking notes on natural lighting, east-facing windows, open kitchens, and backyard garden potential. After nearly 2 months of searching, they stepped into a classic Craftsman 3 bedrooms, a bright kitchen, original oak floors, and a cozy backyard that seemed to exhale peace. As Isabella crossed the threshold, she paused. Her heart pounded. "Do you feel it?" Harper whispered. "A home office here, a garden there, a real life, beginning right here." Isabella nodded slowly. For the first time, the dream wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It was a place she could touch, live in, and love within. Bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon light streaming through the windows, she whispered, "I think this might be it." That evening, the family dinner was as routine as ever. Isabella and Harper drove to her parents' house in Westchester, red wine, roast beef, soft chandelier lighting, and the usual small talk that drifted across the table like wallpaper, until her father Gregory casually remarked, "That kitchen with the light oak cabinets looks cozy, doesn't it?" The fork froze midair. Isabella hadn't told her parents about the oak cabinets. Not on the phone, not in texts. She and Harper had only toured that house days ago. "Where did you hear that?" she asked, trying to sound light. Gregory hesitated, then shrugged. "You must have mentioned it during a call." Isabella nodded, but her mind was already spinning. In the car, Harper leaned in and whispered, "Maybe you did say something. But what if you didn't?" The doubt settled like a fog. A few days later, it turned into something far more concrete. A notification popped up on Isabella's banking app account, accessed from a new device. She hadn't used any new device. Opening her laptop, the one she used for budgeting and banking, she logged in through a secure browser and reviewed her recent activity. No money had been moved, but the pit in her stomach deepened. She called the bank. After confirming her identity, the rep told her, "There was a login from an unfamiliar IP address earlier today at 2:15 p.m. from within Connecticut." She remembered 2:15 p.m. she'd been in a meeting. She hadn't opened her bank all day. She changed her password, enabled two-factor authentication. But 2 days later, another alert arrived. Successful login from an unrecognized device. This time she got a security specialist on the phone, Marcus. "We're seeing multiple access attempts this week," he said. "Some from mobile devices that aren't tied to your profile. A few initiated wire transfer guides, no funds moved yet, but it looks like someone's preparing to." Isabella asked, "So, nothing's been taken?" "Not yet, but it's a red flag." Marcus recommended a temporary freeze and advised her to scan all her devices. That night, Isabella did just that. She started with her phone, then her personal laptop, the one she used for everything from budgeting to mortgage pre-approval emails. The surface scan revealed nothing. But when she ran a deep system scan, something surfaced, an unfamiliar program quietly running in the background. After some research and help from a tech-savvy friend, she confirmed the nightmare. A high-level spyware capable of logging keystrokes, capturing screenshots, even remotely accessing her microphone and camera. Then she remembered months earlier her laptop had slowed down. During a visit home, her father had offered to clean it up. He'd taken it into his office for hours. "This is what I do for clients all the time," he had said, smiling as he handed it back. She hadn't thought twice. Until now. Isabella's laptop, her faithful companion for over 3 years, had suddenly become a crime scene. Every keystroke, every banking login, every updated spreadsheet might have been logged, screenshotted, and transmitted not to a faceless hacker, but to someone she once trusted most, her father. She remembered the night clearly. About 4 months earlier, her laptop had been sluggish, freezing under heavy programs. While visiting her parents, her father Gregory had offered to take a look. "I do this for clients all the time," he had said, smiling as he carried her device into his home office. She hadn't thought twice. After all, she'd been raised to believe that parents always knew best, and secrets had no place in a good family. 3 hours later, he returned with her laptop faster, cleaner, and smooth as new. Isabella had felt grateful then. Now she felt sick. The spyware uncovered had terrifying capabilities, logged every keyboard input, took periodic screenshots, sent data to a remote server, had remote access to her webcam and microphone. It wasn't some parental control software. It was the kind of tool used in corporate espionage or private investigations, not something you'd expect to find on the personal computer of a woman simply trying to manage her finances and plan her life. After several calls with cybersecurity experts, the timeline became clear. The program had been installed the exact day her father fixed her laptop. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate, calculated violation. Isabella sat frozen under the dim yellow glow of her desk lamp, the realization pounding in her chest like a warning bell. Her own father had used his professional skills not to protect her, but to invade her. He had seen her finances, her emails, her home search, her private conversations with Harper. Everything. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was betrayal at its most intimate level. And in that moment, Isabella knew she could no longer pretend everything was fine. The night Isabella discovered the spyware, she couldn't sleep. She sat in the dark, lit only by the glow of her computer screen and the rising storm inside her chest. For months, years, she had believed she was in control. But now the one thing she couldn't control was the reality that her trust had been betrayed. Harper was still asleep. Isabella didn't want to wake her. She quietly picked up Harper's tablet, the only device that had never touched her banking information, and logged in with a 2-step verification code. The screen loaded slowly, then displayed the number. 0B0. She blinked, refreshed the page, checked the URL. Still 0. Her savings account, 10 years of sacrifice and discipline, was gone. Isabella rushed to the transaction history. One line stood out in stark clarity. Full wire transfer. Recipient, Gregory Morgan. The silence in the room became deafening. Her ears rang. The world tilted. Harper jolted awake to the sound, something between a gasp and a sob. She rushed over and grabbed Isabella's shoulders. What happened? Are you okay? Isabella couldn't speak at first. She just handed Harper the tablet. It's gone, she whispered. 10 years. The house. Everything. It's gone. Harper immediately sprang into action. She called the bank and reported a suspected fraud case. But when the representative checked the recipient's name, Isabella's blood ran cold. It was her father. Not a hacker, not a mistake. A Morgan just like her. She tried calling him. No answer. She texted her mother. Silence. She sent emergency emails to both of them. Nothing. By morning, after a sleepless night pacing the apartment, Isabella stood tall, her eyes steely. You don't have to come, she told Harper. I have to do this alone. She drove to the old Westchester house. Every detail was the same, the white fence, the trimmed garden, the American flag on the porch. But inside, she was no longer the same daughter. Her mother, Evelyn, opened the door, face shifting from surprise to a carefully neutral expression. Isabella, what a surprise! What brings you here on a Tuesday? No response. Isabella walked straight to her father's study. Gregory was seated, removing his glasses. What's this visit about? She closed the door behind her. I know what you did. He tilted his head. You'll need to be more specific. She didn't flinch. $390,000, the money I've saved over the past 10 years, was transferred to your account. And the spyware you installed on my laptop when you fixed it months ago. For a split second, something flickered across his face. Then he leaned back, expression hardening. That money isn't gone. It's being used wisely for Logan's future. And just like that, the illusion collapsed. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a trap built by the very man who raised her. The air in her father's study felt heavy after Isabella's accusation. But Gregory Morgan didn't panic. Instead, he straightened up, clasped his hands, and wore an unsettling calm. "You're overreacting," he said. "We're family, and sometimes family has to make tough decisions." Isabella clenched her fists, trying to steady the shaking inside her chest. "You made a decision with my money without asking me, and now you're calling that family." At that moment, Evelyn entered the room and gently closed the door behind her. "We both know you get emotional about finances," she interjected. "You're blaming us for thinking ahead when you were about to dump your entire savings into a house in a risky market." Isabella turned to face her. "I'm 29. I have a stable career, a clear plan. I don't need anyone making decisions for me, especially not by spying on me, installing surveillance software, and draining my savings." Her father tapped the desk with his palm, a hint of impatience in his tone. "You don't understand. Logan just got accepted into a top MBA program. He has a promising startup idea. That money, if invested wisely, will benefit this family long term, whereas your house, it's a liability." The front door opened and closed. A few moments later, her younger brother Logan appeared in the doorway, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on? Why are you all—" Isabella turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "Mom and Dad took my entire savings and gave it to you." Logan's eyes widened. "What? No, I had no idea. I never asked for that." Evelyn stepped forward. "You don't need to feel guilty. Everything we did was for your future. Isabella should understand that." Logan took a step back. "If she didn't agree to it, it's not for the family. It's theft." Gregory's voice sharpened. "We're her parents. We have the right." Isabella stood taller. "No. You had responsibility, not ownership. And installing spyware, illegally accessing my accounts, and transferring funds, that's a crime." Silence settled for a few seconds, thick and unmoving. Everyone seemed to wait for someone to say the thing no one wanted to admit. And Isabella did. "You have 24 hours to return the money. If not, I'm going to the police. I have proof of everything." Gregory shot up from his chair. "You wouldn't. Not to your own parents." She looked at him not with hatred, but with a quiet resolve forged over a lifetime. "Watch me." All three of them, her parents and Logan, stood frozen after Isabella's ultimatum. Her gaze didn't waver. In that moment, she was no longer the quiet daughter shaped by rules and fear. She was a woman, one forged by the very control they used to try to keep her small. And then something no one expected happened. Isabella laughed. Not a chuckle, not a smirk. A full-bodied laugh, sharp, unexpected, and strangely victorious. She doubled over, laughing until tears welled in her eyes. Gregory scowled. "What's so funny?" Isabella straightened her face, calm, almost serene. "Because you didn't actually get what you thought you did." Evelyn blinked. "What do you mean?" Isabella stepped closer to the desk. "I withdrew $351,000 from that account a week before the transfer happened. I moved it to another bank in person, not online, so there would be no digital trail. I did it after noticing suspicious login alerts and account activity." Gregory's face paled. "Impossible." "I monitored that account. There were no major transactions." "Exactly," Isabella replied. "Because it wasn't digital. I walked into the bank, sat with a manager, and moved the funds manually. They helped me structure it so no e-alerts or online entries would register." Evelyn slumped into a chair, visibly shaken. "You're lying." "Feel free to call the bank and check," Isabella said coolly. "Though after what you've done, I'm not sure they'll be very cooperative." Gregory's complexion reddened. He pounded his palm on the desk. "So you set us up?" "No," she said, her voice quiet but unshakable. "I protected myself. Because deep down I stopped trusting you a long time ago." At that moment, Harper entered. She had been waiting outside in the car, but upon hearing raised voices and seeing Isabella's face through the window, she stepped inside. Without a word, she stood beside Isabella, taking her hand. Logan, now fully understanding the situation, stepped forward, looking at both their parents. "I want no part of this. I never asked for her money. And if she decides to press charges, I'll support her." No one responded. Isabella looked at her parents one final time, her voice steady. "I came here to speak face to face, but from now on there won't be any more private conversations. The next contact you receive from me will be through a lawyer." Isabella walked out of her childhood home with a feeling she had never fully experienced before, freedom mixed with resolve. She was no longer the daughter craving approval, no longer the girl bending herself to stay lovable. She was a woman who knew her limits and was ready to defend them even if it meant going to court. The next morning, Isabella and Harper went to the Stamford Police Department. They brought everything: bank statement screenshots of the spyware wire transfer documentation and a full record of suspicious login activity. The officer assigned to her case was Detective Claire Jenkins, a sharp-eyed woman with a steady voice. "I've seen family exploitation cases before," she said, "but yours is one of the most calculated. The hardest crimes to expose often happen within the family." Claire advised Isabella to contact an attorney who specialized in financial crime and privacy violations. Through a trusted connection, Isabella found attorney Natalie Brooks, a seasoned lawyer who had handled dozens of parental theft and surveillance cases. In their first meeting, Natalie listened carefully from beginning to end without interrupting. When Isabella finished, Natalie nodded with purpose. "Here's what we'll do. 1, file for an emergency court injunction to freeze your parents' accounts. 2, launch a civil suit for return of funds and damages. 3, coordinate with law enforcement on potential criminal charges." Within days, the local court approved the account freeze. Gregory and Evelyn Morgan, once proud of their respected reputation, now had to face the consequences of their choices. Isabella didn't go public, but word spread through the family. Calls came in. Some expressed support, others judgment. The most painful message came from Aunt Maggie, her once beloved maternal aunt. "I don't agree with what they did," the email read, "but taking your parents to court, that could ruin every chance of healing. Is that really what you want?" Isabella had asked herself that question many times, but then she remembered her father's smug, icy words. "Thanks for your naivete. Because of you, Logan's future is secure." To Isabella, justice wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries, about reclaiming the worth others had tried to dismiss. One late evening, Harper held her close in silence. Isabella whispered, "I'm not doing this out of hate. I'm doing it because if I don't, they'll never believe they did anything wrong." Fairfield County Courthouse, with its polished wood benches and solemn stillness, became the final battleground between Isabella Morgan and the parents who had once called their actions protection. Isabella sat at the plaintiff's table beside her attorney Natalie Brooks. Across from them were her parents Gregory and Evelyn Morgan, flanked by their high-profile defense attorney Spencer Whitmore, well known for representing wealthy clients in damage control cases. From the outset, the defense tried to paint Isabella as financially impulsive, a daughter whose parents had simply acted out of concern. Whitmore argued that their actions were misguided love, not malice. But Natalie Brooks cut through the narrative. "This was not protection," she said firmly. "It was a violation of privacy, of financial autonomy, and most painfully of the sacred trust between parent and child." Then came Isabella's turn to testify. She walked to the witness stand, hands slightly trembling, but eyes unwavering. She spoke of 10 years of saving the silent sacrifices, the spyware discovery, and the gut-wrenching moment her account balance read 0. "It wasn't just money they took," she said. "It was my time, my effort, my trust. Taken by the very people who were supposed to protect me." Next, a digital forensic expert testified. They confirmed the spyware had been installed on the same day Gregory fixed Isabella's laptop. Server logs linked the data flow directly to Gregory's home network. The turning point came when Logan, her younger brother, took the stand. He not only confirmed he had never asked for or approved the transfer, but also revealed that their parents had pressured him to stay silent, threatening to revoke his tuition support if he refused. A ripple of shock spread through the courtroom. In her closing remarks, Judge Elaine Carter delivered her verdict. The court finds the defendants not only legally liable, but ethically reprehensible. The unauthorized surveillance, digital intrusion, and financial theft have been thoroughly proven, she ordered. Immediate return of the $39,000 taken from Isabella's account. An additional $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and legal costs. A permanent injunction preventing Gregory and Evelyn from accessing Isabella's financial accounts or devices ever again. Judge Carter also referred the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. Isabella didn't smile as the verdict was read, but silent tears rolled down her cheeks not from grief, but because she knew she had reclaimed something far greater than money, her right to stand up for herself.